question. Do you intend to raise VAT? Liam Fox?
No.
Does that mean you won't?
That means that we don't plan to raise VAT. That was the question.
Well, all right. Do you mean when you say do you plan to raise VAT, the questioner, do you mean now or not never?
Now.
Now?
Yes, if they get into
If you get
government.
in.
No, we don't have any plans to raise VAT. However, given the state of... it would be dishonest to say that you can rule any tax rise out given the state of the public finances. We have no plans to raise VAT. However, you can't rule anything out completely given that we owe nearly £1 trillion in debt. And let me tell you what that number equals. I know people don't understand the size, I think, of the debt. The size of the debt we now have is the equivalent of borrowing £1.1 million every single day since the birth of Christ. That's how much money this country now owes.
I already gave all those statistics.
OK, no, Vince Cable, in your policies, do you rule out an increase in VAT?
No, we don't rule it out.
OK.
We think that we should deal with this through spending discipline, but of course you can't rule it out.
We've been in government 13 years and we've never raised VAT. Our plans add up without a rise in VAT. Past Conservative governments have raised VAT within weeks of coming in.
Their plans don't add up. The question is, do you rule it out?
Look, our plans add up without a rise in VAT. Liam's plans will only add up with a rise in VAT.
We can't absolutely rule it out. The Liberals can't absolutely rule it out. Do you rule it out?
I think that gentleman should prepare for a rise in VAT, from what I've heard.
Do you... Sorry, let's be very clear, Ed Balls, insofar as you know, because you're not Chancellor, and I see you're very low down on the list of people preferred as Chancellor, according to public opinion. That's not a low blow.
And are you above me or below me?
I'm not even at the starting gate for Chancellor. Does your party rule out an increase in VAT? Or would your answer be similar to the others? Well, it's not in our plans, but who knows?
No, we've not said we have no plans. We've said our plans don't need it. Listen, the Chancellor said very clearly that he can never, as Chancellor, rule out anything for future budgets. But I say, in 13 years, we've never done it. The Conservatives have always done it within weeks of being elected, and that's what will happen again.
All right. The woman there in the third row from the back.
I just wonder whether you think we're all ignorant and whether you really think that little of us, that you just can't answer questions. We have a right to have questions answered. We saw it tonight. Teflon Dave, nothing sticks. He doesn't actually answer anything despite constant questions. Ed Balls, you're just as bad. You constantly say, I hear you, but, or however. Just answer the questions, because you're just making a mockery of the whole system.
What about him?
Well, to be fair, I have to say, my overriding kind of opinion of tonight and the debate was that what we saw was we were so busy focusing on David Cameron and Gordon Brown bickering at each other that suddenly there's Nick Clegg in the middle and we forget to actually put him under as much scrutiny as the other two.
And what is it, sorry, since you're so passionate about it, what is it you feel you're not being told?
The whole lot, basically. I mean, we've asked directly, where's the rest of this money coming from? Will you have an increase in VAT? And you can't get a straight answer. It's as though you're treating us like we're ignorant. And you work for us. We pay for you. You're here to represent us.
Just make a point.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. I believe both David Cameron and Gordon Brown, they're misleading people with their almost every single policy on immigration, economy, tuition fees, which wasn't discussed. For example, Cameron talks about a nonsense, let's say, cap for immigrants, and Gordon Brown, the leader of your party, for example, says that we will send the immigrants more than 40,000. We will cut the number of overseas citizens by 40,000.
I'm going to stop you, because we're going to come to immigrants in just a moment, and I can see you've got plenty to say about it.
I just want to talk about the economy too. For example,
stick with the economy just for the moment.
Oh, okay. So, with regard to economy, tuition fee is, for example, what economy. What do, for example, we lose if it indiscriminately turn away 40,000 more non-EU for students, aside from massive income and global talent for the sake of
thank you very much.
Votes.
All right, and you, sir, on the gangway there.
Yes, the politicians stood up and said today, we're here, we need to make tough decisions. All I heard was punish the people who have least to start with. Why is it there is only one party, for example, which is talking seriously about stopping long-term investment, for example, in nuclear weapons? There are big things like that that I would happily say, let's cut those before we cut benefits for people who have the least to start with.
I'll take one more point, Russo, in the Czech show.
I don't think Liam Fox is being honest about tax cuts this year. At the Tory party conference, they were talking about really swinging cuts, and when they found that the polls didn't like that, they then toned it down. But rest assured, if you get into power, you'll put massive cuts on this country.
OK, and I think we actually, let's go on. Thank you very much. We'll go on to another question from Annabel Heath, please. Annabel Heath.
Are you a bigot to ask the Prime Minister about immigration?
Are you a bigot to ask the Prime Minister, Gillian Duffy, of course, who, in that rather confused conversation with Gordon Brown, ended up with him calling her a bigoted woman? Liam Fox.
Absolutely not. And it seems that in this country, politicians have real trouble dealing with the issue of immigration in a non-inflammatory way, and politicians tend to avoid the subject far too often. On the doorstep in this election, you cannot go more than 2 or 3 doors without someone saying, what about immigration? That's the issue that a lot of voters want to talk about. Now, I think that we need to understand that this country's got a very proud history in assimilating immigrants into our country. They've enriched our country in many ways. But if you're going to have a successful immigration policy, you have to have 2 things. First of all, you have to have a host population that's willing to allow people to integrate, and secondly, you have to have people coming in who wish to integrate. And if you have immigration that's too high in number and too quick, neither of those things are allowed to properly happen, which is why you have to restrict the total number coming in as best you can, and you also choose the people who are coming into the country to ensure that they contribute as best you can to the country's well-being. That seems to me a perfectly common-sense approach to immigration. It is not bigoted to want to talk about an issue that the public want to talk about. The election is about the public's agenda, not the politicians' agenda.
Ed Balls.
The answer is no. And I've now seen the transcript and seen the film of what Mrs Duffy was saying, and I thought she was right to raise those concerns. I thought she was right to say that she was concerned about her children and her grandchildren. She was concerned about jobs. She was concerned about pensions. And she was concerned about the impact of immigration in her community. And she was right to raise those concerns. And on the doorstep, I find thousands of people saying the same thing to me as well. And we've got to show that we can meet those concerns. People also say our NHS wouldn't work without people who come from abroad to work in the health service, and I completely agree. The diversity of our country is one of our great strengths, but there is a real concern here. It's not bigoted, and we've got to respond to that, and it's actually about jobs and people's security this year on the economy. So I thought that she was not bigoted at all.
The woman in the middle there.
So are you openly criticising Gordon Brown then?
Well, I think Gordon Brown himself has openly criticised himself. He said that what he said was wrong, and whether he says it in public or in private, it was wrong. He said it at the beginning of the debate tonight, and, you know, we all as politicians know what it can be like to have a microphone on and to say the wrong thing, and, you know, I'm sure we've all been there before, but, you know, the answer to your question is he was completely wrong, and he's apologised, and rightly so.
Alex Salmond.
Well, Gillian Duffy clearly wasn't a bigot. She was a Rochdale granny who does voluntary work and had a series of concerns, and it was perfectly clear from her interviews how shocked she was to be called that by the Prime Minister. Now, it's all very well for Ed Balls to say the Prime Minister was wrong, but what shocked people...
He said he was wrong.
Well, it's all very well to say that, but what shocked people, Ed, and what you've got to realise, is the Prime Minister smiled at this lady in public and then defamed her in private. And, you know, we've read about various things saying that the Prime Minister does that, he blames other people for his own misfortunes, but this was actually seen on television and heard. And for the first time, the whole country got an insight into what various people have commented about the Prime Minister's character and behaviour. And one other thing I'd say, if you just try and think about this for a second, Gillian Duffy was going to Canada on holiday. She'd voted Labour all her life, she got a postal vote, which she put on the table. She then went out to get the messages. She meets the Prime Minister, the leader of the Labour Party, and then for the first time in her life she doesn't vote Labour. I mean, you know, I'm going to think, you know, the Tories have inserted a doppelganger, and the real Gordon Brown's in a cupboard somewhere.